Hey everybody, Streak1 here, and today I'll be showing you my Sorcerer, my Magicka Sorcerer damage dealer build for 1 Tamriel. This build is mainly for veteran 12-man trials, veteran dungeons, and I'll do a vMA guide as well towards the end of the video. So, starting off, we use 5 Twice-Born Star because it's giving the best results. I know there's new sets like Spellweave, but the problem with that is one, sorcerers don't do enough flame damage to keep the set up a decent amount of the time for it to be stronger than even like Scathing Mage. And Warhorns, like if you're in a coordinated 12-man group, which a lot of people are nowadays, Warhorns will be Twice-Born Star is going to outperform every other set because of the way it works with the Shadow Mundstone and Warhorns. So yeah, we use 5 Twice-Born Star. This one's easy to get. It's craftable. 9 traits. 2 Ilambris. You want both divines on all divines and everything, of course. This set is new to 1 Tamriel, and believe me when I tell you that it's fucking insane. It's doing so much damage. It's like, I've seen it on some of my parses. It does up to like almost 5k damage. It's really insane, and you get, it probably does even more than that because we get a max Magicka slot on the One Piece. Yeah, mine's purple. I'm a noob. I haven't upgraded these yet, but I'll get around to it eventually. Then we use 4 Infallible Aether. This comes from the Trials, HRC, Ethereum Archive, and Sanctum Ophidia. And we use a sharpened lightning staff main bar. You could use a flame staff. I have one. It's not that big of a difference, but I like the lightning staff. It's doing more for me right now because sorcerer passives and because Ilambris here, when you deal flame or shock damage, you have a 10% chance to summon a meteor shower, blah blah blah. Now, the thing with this set is, and why we use a lightning staff main bar, is because on a sorcerer you can proc both the flame and the shock damage one, and they'll hit at the same time, which is really strong. So yeah, we use here, so we have the 4-piece 129 spell damage enchanted with the increased weapon and spell damage glyph. The staff is kind of harder to get. I had a friend of mine give me mine. I have never gotten one myself, but it drops from HRC First Boss and Valerial in AA. Best way to get this, I would recommend, is just getting a farm group together to farm the first boss of Helra over and over again. But yeah, sharpen trait, spell damage glyphs on all the jewelry, and magic glyphs on all of the armor. Now back bar, we use the Maelstrom's Inferno Staff. You want this in sharpened. I don't have a sharpened one, so I just have precise right now. But yeah, sharpened would be best in slot, and you get this obviously from doing Maelstrom Arena on veteran mode. Now for our stats, 64 points into Magicka. We get around 43.9k on our main bar, almost 44k, just self-buffed with Warhorn and all these group buffs. I guess just Warhorn. I'm usually around 47k, almost 48k Magicka. 18k health. That's why we also, another reason why we wear Twice-Born Star, because these new trials, like Maw of Lorcaj more specifically, you need at least 18k health to be able to do and get through it without dying, and like hard mode especially. Spell damage unbuffed, 2105 on main bar, 2168 back bar. When we hit a potion, 2502 and 2577, and when we proc our enchantment, 2940. Now, that goes up with buffs such as minor sorcery from Templars, as well as our crit can go up by casting a dark magic ability. Let me show you real fast. Oh, here, let me look. 64.6, and with a precise, it's over 70, almost 72. Rest of this really doesn't matter as much. So for skills, this pretty basic Sorc setup nowadays. A lot of people are using this, very standard. So obviously we want to have Interlight, Max Magicka, crit. It gives you 7% more Magicka with the Mage's Guild passives. Force Pulse, that remains spammable. Light Attack, Weave, blah blah blah. Malicious Curse, this one's newer. This started being used more recently for sorcerers. This does a lot of DPS, not gonna lie. I don't like the way the skill works, but we don't have much else being a sorcerer, so we use it, and it does deal pretty good damage. I've seen it crit for like 46k in raids before with all buffs. Next skill, another toggle, Bound Aegis, 8% max Magicka. Gotta have it. And then our last skill, Crystal Fragments. This is a fucking insane skill for sorcerers. You get the free proc, deals 20% more damage, costs 50% less, and man, I've seen this hit for like 60k plus in trials. It's nuts. And then we main bar Meteor more for the max Magicka. We don't really use this ultimate anymore because on our back bar we run Destro ultimate. This is new with one Tamriel. This is fucking insane. This ultimate is fucking, man, this really changed Magicka DPS. Magicka DPS is out DPSing stamina now because of this ultimate. It's fucking huge. It's got 10-meter radius. It only lasts 7 seconds, but when you lay this down, your DPS bursts up so high. Like if you lay it down at the start of the fight with like AoE, you can get up to 70k burst. It's nuts. So we use this on single target and fights with AoE mobs like the twins and Mob Lurkage or first boss. I'm pretty sure that if you were to do like a true single target test like a Manacora, that Shooting Star would probably outperform it because the ultimate you regen from this, and the dot lasts longer. Plus it costs way less. This is 170 ultimate and this is 213 on a sorcerer. If I could morph it, I would choose Elemental Rage, I think it's called. That's the one that it has a larger AoE radius, and it deals 10% more damage with a flame staff, so I would choose that one. Next, Inner Light again, because you have to have it on both bars, because, Max Magicka, that too much DPS. Mage's Wrath, this is their execute. Pretty simple, 20%, you just light attack, weave with this. While keeping up Liquid Lightning, this AoE dot, Sorcerer, this deals so much fucking damage. Bound Aegis, because you have to have it on both bars. And then Blockade of Fire, pretty self-explanatory. We use Spell Power Pots. You can use the ones without the crit, but whatever, it doesn't matter. What else? Mundus Stones, obviously. Thief and Shadow Mundus. I want to go over real fast. If you are not in a coordinated 12-man group, then, like, what I mean by that is, like, very low Warhorn uptime, not, like, minimal buffs, really, then Toysborn Star won't be doing much for you, because this set really only benefits us if there is very good group coordination with Warhorns and all those other buffs. So if you're in a group that does not have that, or if you're doing 4-man dungeons, then Scathing Mage will do more than Toyspawn, or even Julianos if you have that. This one's craftable, so there's not much farming to do. But yeah, Scathing Mage, this one, Magicka, 2 crits, and then the spell damage when you do crit damage. This is a very strong set. So yeah, if you don't have a really insane group, then I recommend just using Scathing Mage or Julianos. They both do similar damage. Scathing Mage is slightly better, but not by much anymore. So champion points. These really, green and red trees you can do really however you want, but this is how I do it. I put 100 into Magician, 82 Arcanist, and 3 Tumbling because I like to do vMA and it does help a tiny bit, not much. It's only 2%, but whatever. And then Shadow Ward because also vMA and why not, really. Now for the blue tree, the best results for me are 100 Elemental Expert, 46 Elfborn, 20 Spell Erosion. You might be thinking, well, why do you need Penetration if you run Sharpen and have like all the debuffs? Well, even in a really, really strong coordinated raid group, you're not always going to have 100% uptime on all of the penetration debuffs. So I like to put a little bit more points in here to kind of balance it out for when we don't have all the debuffs up. This will help with that. 1 Staff Expert because light attacks do a decent amount of DPS now with the vMA staff. And 20 Thaumaturge because sorcerers really don't have a lot of dots. We have 2 dots, really. Just, I guess 3 if you count your ultimate, but really 2 dots that we use a lot, which are just Liquid Lightning and Blockade. So, and here I do, well, this is spec for Mauve Lorcage still, but yeah, usually I do like 70 here and a little bit here and some here. But things that are constants with my CP here is I always have 27 in the Bastion for shield and vMA and 10 in quick recovery for the increased healing. Over here really can be changed depending on what you're doing. Like if I'm doing Hellra, I put more points in the Hellra AA or Sanctum, I put more points here. Mauve Lorcage, I always do 100 Elemental Defender. That's pretty much it with CP. Don't think I missed anything. Buff food, max Magicka, max health, CP 150. Oh, another thing. I know a lot of people like to run a crafted staff. Like, okay, so like if you don't have an infall staff, what you could do is you could run either a sharpened vMA staff if you have it, or just a regular crafted staff with the weapon spell damage glyph sharpen trait. I ran this for a little while before I had my infallible Aether staff, and it's not a huge DPS difference, but in the long run, when you do get this, you will notice it, the difference in damage. Now, like I was saying, if you don't have this, then just run this with either the poison. I don't know which poison it is, but I think it's absorb health. I'm not sure, but I don't know. I just ran the weapon and spell damage glyph. It does similar damage. So that covers it for 12-man trials and 4-man trials. Let's get into rotation. This is pretty simple. What I like to do is, so let's practice on this guy. When I open up, I hit my potion first, right? And then I do a curse, bar swap, liquid lightning, cancel, and then blockade. And then start doing light attacks, and you see curse just annihilates him. So go over that one more time. It's curse, bar swap, liquid lightning, blockade, and then light attack, weave for your frag pulse, your frag proc, or your force pulsar. And then once I get that first part of the rotation down, after my 2 dots, liquid lightning and blockade, run off, I curse. So I would do like here, I would do curse, bar swap, apply the dots, and then do my ultimate and then bar swap. So it animation cancels the ultimate, and then you go to your front bar and then you do curse again. So you always want to keep up curse. You always want to keep up liquid lightning and blockade. And yeah, you might see that I'm doing animation cancels. This one is a little bit more advanced, but I recommend you start practicing that because it does help out. You speed up your rotation by doing it, which allows you to do more damage per second. You can get off more force pulses, you can get off more curses, you can get off more frag procs. So it's very simple. You just do, sometimes I don't do light attack, but I recommend doing it. Sometimes I'm just so into the rotation, it's going really fast. But what you do is you just hit your liquid lightning and then block. Literally what you do, just hit and then block and just tap block. So I do liquid lightning block and then light attack, blockade, bar swap. Just like that, very fast. So now we will get into Veteran Maelstrom Arena. Alright guys, we are back for Maelstrom Arena setup. This has changed just a tiny bit for this new patch. So before we were running obviously 5 Julianos because it's constant spell damage and crit. And we had Magicka on before. So you would do, you get the 1-piece spell damage, and then when you do 2 light attacks, you'd proc for the 516. And we would pair that with Overload, because Overload does proc Kina, and then you would get the spell damage, making your overloads hit harder. But now I switched to Ilambris, which is actually doing more DPS than Kina in vMA because of the double proc on Sorcerer. Now you can what I like to do is I like to put my my dots like liquid lightning and blockade underneath the portal. And when they come out of the portal, I've noticed is this almost procs instantly, and you don't even have to turn around and force pulse them or anything. You could just have them sit in your dots and in the Ilambris proc, and they melt. So I recommend using this over Kina, and the difference in overload damage is very small, especially since we use Elegant. Now, this set is extremely hard to get the weapons more specifically. The jewelry isn't that bad, but yeah, these weapons, especially in Sharpen Trade, are very rare. They've become more common more recently, but they are still hard to find. I know that they used to drop in Sanctum. I'm pretty sure they still do, normal Sanctum, but I am not 100% sure. But yes, you want to get Sharpen Trait, Dual Wield, and 3 Jewelry, and you may be wondering why you're using axe and a dagger and not swords. Well, it's because swords for overload. This bar is only for overload, really. We cast our dots, yeah, but when we bar swap, it doesn't even matter. You don't get the spell damage increase for the dual wield. This is more for overload because, 1, the 5-piece light and heavy tech damage that does apply to overload, but 2, when you, the reason I'm using these and not swords, I mean, it's really for no reason. It's just there's no difference. So under here, Twin Blade Blood passive, as you can see, each sword increases your damage done by 2.5%. Well, when we go into overload, as you can see, we don't have weapons in our hands, so we're not getting that passive buff for swords because technically we don't have any weapons. We get the 5-piece bonus for elegant because we're on the bar with the 5-piece, but since we have no weapons, we don't get that 5% buff for using swords. We don't get any buff, basically. So that's why I just have these, because 1, they're the only elegant weapons I could get, and 2, there's no difference at all between these and using swords. So whatever you can find in elegant weapons, I say get it as long as it's sharpened. It does not matter the type. It can be an axe, a dagger, a mace. It could be a sword, but there's no benefit from it. And we use a Inferno Staff sharpened trait. I recommend a vMA staff, but I don't have it. So I use a sharpened staff with the spell damage glyph. Yeah, best in slot would be a sharpened vMA staff, flame staff, but I do not have that. So again, 2 Ilambris, 5 Julianos, and 5 Elegant with the 2 sharpened weapons. Now, our stats with this, we have 45k Magicka on our front bar, 17k health, which is enough for vMA, 2.8k spell damage on buffed. Buff, we have 3.3, and on this bar we have 2.8. And 46k max Magicka on this bar. That is because of Ilambris, and this will be higher if I had gold Ilambris, but I don't have the mats, unfortunately. But our Magicka is so high because of Elegant on this bar, so we get 2 max Magicka spots. That increases the damage of Overload by a shit ton, as well as the 5-piece increase your light and heavy attack damage by 20%, which is insane. I've had before with Kina, I had like 47k Overload procs. Now they're down to like 44k, but I still have the Ilambris proc, which out DPSs the additional damage from Kina anyway, so there is that. Now, you can still use Kina, it's still good, but it hurts your Magicka, so I just recommend Ilambris. It's the new set, and it's free DPS. You do DPS and it procs, and it's just nuts. Now our bars have changed from the 12-man setup. We still have Inner Light and Bound Aegis because of the Magicka. We still have Force Pulse, but we now run Blockade on our front bar because we have to do dual wield. And Crystal Fragments because fucking Crystal Fragments, that's why. It's insane. Shooting Star, we don't use this, but we have it here for the max Magicka. Because that, like, you can slot another, like, Sorc ultimate here for the spell damage, but the max Magicka is doing slightly more damage, so I keep that here. Don't use this in vMA. Back bar, Inner Light again, Bound Aegis. We use Hardened Ward, it's our only shield in vMA, and Liquid Lightning because, Liquid Lightning. Power Surge, this is our main heal. We want to keep this up in vMA all the time, and the good thing about this skill is since it gives us major sorcery, we don't have to waste potions in vMA. So I don't have any on me, but when I do vMA, I just use trash Magicka potions or tripods too. Those work for some little extra support with healing, but I use those and just keep Power Surge up all the time. And then Energy Overload, you can do Power Overload if you don't have Magicka issues, but I like to do vMA obviously for scores and competitively, so when I'm going really fast, sometimes my Magicka doesn't have enough time to regen, so I use Energy Overload to help me gain Magicka back, and this is really good because you basically have infinite sustain on a Sorcerer in vMA. Because 1, this returns Magicka, and all you have to do is build ult to use it. And 2, we don't use an execute, we just use Force Pulse to basically kill stuff and frags and these abilities, whatever. So the good thing about using Destro abilities when you kill an enemy is, where is it? Here, when you restore 3,600 Magicka when you kill a target with a Destruction Staff spell or weapon attack. So basically, when I kill an enemy with Force Pulse, which is it happens a lot in vMA, I basically get 3,600 Magicka back. So it refunds almost double the cost of the skill. So yes, I see people running like regen builds in vMA and stuff like Seducer, blah blah blah, because they're having Magicka issues. Well, all you really have to do is kill stuff faster, and that's why I recommend using these DPS sets. And I have 0 sustain issues because of Overload in this passive here. So in our Overload bar, it's basically the same as the dual wield bar. So we have the toggles, Liquid Lightning, Hardened Ward, or Shield. But I do run Boundless Storm, and what I like to do is in between portal spawns, I just cast this real quick and then detoggle Overload. And after, let's say, I use this skill up until stage 5, and on stage 5, I just swap it out for Power Surge because the boss fights tend to be longer after stage 5. So I don't like to go out of Overload to retoggle spell Power Surge, so I just swap it out here. But for half the dungeon, I use Boundless Storm. CP setup is the exact same as the 12-man and veteran dungeon setup. I don't change it. That's how I like it. It's how I do well. It's given me the best results. And that's basically it. You wanna, for passives, I guess you wanna have all your passives. For Sorcerer, Industrial Staff, obviously, Light Armor. Heavy Armor, get this passive. This helps increase your max health by 2%. That's a pretty big deal, especially when it comes to 12-mans. Even vMA, it helps out a lot. Mage's Guild, I only take these 3 passives. Daunted, you want to get this up, of course. Alliance, where you don't use any skills. For racials, okay, so for vMA specifically, best in slot is High Elf. High Elf is doing the most damage because you have 1% more Magicka than Dunmer. I'm not even gonna count Breton because Breton is useless in my opinion. I mean, you can use it, but it's not the end of the world if you have a Breton and don't feel like race changing. But if you want to be 100% maxed out, I recommend going either swapping to a High Elf or rolling a High Elf. Because they have the most max Magicka, 10%. Magic Recovery helps pretty decently with sustain. They did nerf Magic Recovery, but it's not too bad. I've noticed hardly any difference. And Elemental Talent. See, I know that Dark Elf has more flame damage, but it has less shock damage. And in vMA, Overload is your main ultimate for all the bosses, and your overloads are going to hit way harder with a High Elf. Now I know it's only 2%, but it adds up. And when you're going for a fast clear, and you just want to get it done, then your overloads hitting harder will be. You'll have the hardest hitting overloads with an Ulmer, as well as the Force Pulse. The only thing that really does more damage on Dunmer is your blockade, but it's not a huge percentage of your DPS in vMA. I do recommend a High Elf for trials still, too. Now, the only craft passive you really want is Alchemy, medicinal use. This one is a must-have. Potions last 30% longer. You want this. And that is pretty much it for this video. As far as alternate setups for Maelstrom, this is best in slot. If you can get this, I really recommend getting it. Nothing can beat this at the moment, but I understand that some of this is really hard to get. So let's say you don't have a vMA staff sharpened, then just use what I'm using here, just a random staff with spell damage left. You don't have Elegant, which I'm not expecting a lot of people to have it, but what I used to use a couple patches ago was I would just do 3 willpower jewelry with 2 Torg's packed swords, something with 2-piece spell damage, anything really, as long as they're sharpened. And I would still use Ilambris. You could use Kina, like I said, but Ilambris does more damage. That's pretty much it, so I think I went over everything. If I missed something or if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I will be posting more builds like this and more vMA guides in the future. And that's pretty much it for me, so see you guys in the next video. Peace.